Good afternoon. I've been involved in this movement since July, almost 8 months ago, and I joined because it was clearly to me a humanitarian cause, and it was necessary for all of us, my country, the world community, the United Nations, to stand up and do the right thing. I've been to Paris 4 times. I've been to Geneva twice. I've been to Washington more times than I can count. We've had rallies in front of the White House. We've had rallies in the Congress of the United States, in the building itself, in the Capitol, and we've had rallies here and in other places abroad. And what other speakers have said is true. You have been incredibly faithful, determined, focused, and dedicated supporters of your cause and your people. Each time I come, there's a different array of impressive speakers from the United States, from Europe, from countries all over the world. People who've accomplished much, people who speak with great authority, people who are moral and political leaders. This is a humanitarian cause, and to resolve it, there has to be movement on both sides. And Madame Rajavi has been brilliantly cooperative. She has tried to make this work in every way that she can. She has shown real leadership. A real leader has to be strong and has to stand up, but a real leader has to know when to move and when to try to bring about results. And she has done all of that. And we have failed her. We have failed her. Anybody here think the United Nations has done the right thing in regards to the residents of Camp Ashraf? Of course not. And I'm going to talk about the U.S. in a second. Why did we have to leave Ashraf in the first place? This whole immigration process should have taken place in Ashraf. How was Ashraf a threat to the security of the Iraqi government? Can anybody explain that to me? I've been asking that question over and over and over again, and I haven't got an answer. And yet the U.S. and the UN stood by and let this agreement go forward that residents were going to move into a camp that at the worst is a prison camp, at the best is a refugee camp, but a refugee camp without freedom of movement that every other refugee camp has. Where were the UN officials? Where are the European community? Where's the international community? And where is the United States of America in standing up to these issues? Well, Madame Rajavi and the MEK have been willing to work, willing to move their residents, despite what they've established at Camp Ashraf, despite the fact it would be so easy to do the immigration process there. They didn't say no. They said, we'll work with you. We'll try to make this work. But as the process has unfolded, the only people who've given, the only people who've done the right thing are the MEK. What they've put together at Camp Liberty is nothing more than a prison camp. Why didn't the UN and the US say no? What hold does the Iraqi government and its puppet masters in Tehran have over the U.S. and the UN? Why didn't the international community, the UN and the U.S. say no police inside the camp? It's a secure camp. If you're worried about it and you're not going to give freedom of movement, you can station police outside the gate to make sure nobody leaves. But if you put police inside the gate, you're just asking for harassment and a confrontation. Why didn't the international community, the UN, and the U.S. say no to the Iraqis? Because we didn't have the power? Because they're a sovereign nation? Because the Iraqis aren't interested in the weaponry that the United States is going to give them? Why didn't we say no? Why didn't we stand up and say the MOU is being violated? The same MOU that the UN put together, the UN won't even enforce. The UN won't even enforce the MOU that Ambassador Kobler signed. It's already been violated in regards to personal property and automobiles. Where is the backbone of the UN? Why doesn't it say to the Iraqi government, you signed this, those automobiles and the personal property is coming into Camp Liberty, period. UNHCR says freedom of movement is essential. They produced a document about 10 days ago saying freedom of movement is essential to any refugee camp. And yet the Iraqi government said no freedom of movement. Why didn't we object when the original camp was supposed to be literally 10, 15 times bigger than the area in this camp.